My own daughter told me I didn't deserve to live in her house. I'm Daniel Cole, and I've spent 30 years building something my daughter never tried to understand. Last month, she demanded my oceanfront villa, a place I spent half my life paying off, so her fiancé could modernize it. Then she posted about it online to her 600,000 followers, bragging that she'd soon be moving into our family property. She gave me 24 hours to pack up my old junk and leave. What she didn't know was that the villa she wanted wasn't the only property in my name. And by sunrise, everything she thought was hers would be gone. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply picked up my phone and made 3 calls. But before that, let me tell you how we got here, because the story didn't start last week. It began 3 decades ago with a promise I made to myself about the difference between giving your child everything and teaching them to value anything. Most people look at me and see exactly what my daughter sees. A man in his mid-50s driving an old silver pickup with fading paint and a cracked dashboard. Someone who wears discount store flannels and brings cheap wine to expensive dinner parties. To my daughter Lila Cole, 28 years old and living online like it's oxygen, I'm an embarrassment. Dad, do you even hear yourself? She said at her last birthday party. You look like you just walked off a construction site. How am I supposed to introduce you to Nathan's friends like that? Nathan, her fiancé, heir to a massive real estate empire worth over $200 million. The man drives cars that cost more than small houses and talks about generational wealth, like it's a language only the elite understand. 6 months ago, I started realizing I was losing my daughter. First, she started referring to my beach house as the family estate, then as her future home. Over dinner one night, she said, "When Nathan and I get married, we'll obviously take over the villa. You can move somewhere smaller, more appropriate for you." That word, appropriate, stuck in my head like a nail. Then came the social media posts. An Instagram story from my living room. Some people just don't understand when it's time to step aside. The comments were brutal. Strangers calling me a relic, a boomer holding back her success. She screenshotted the worst ones and sent them to me. See, even people online get it. I didn't respond. I just saved them. Every single one. What Lila didn't realize was that I'd been quietly watching her life unfold through those filtered stories. The $90,000 Range Rover lease I paid for, the designer handbags I bought for her graduation, the luxury apartment I covered every month because she said it was safer for networking. And through it all, she acted like she'd built that life herself. As if I were just some lucky man who inherited a single property and didn't know how the real world worked. At a charity event last spring, I overheard her tell Nathan's mother, "My dad's a simple guy, blue-collar type. He tries, but he doesn't really get how money moves in our circle." Their circle. The one she believed she belonged to because I spent my life making sure she'd never have to worry. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. She brought Nathan to the villa for dinner. They walked in like they already owned the place. Nathan immediately started scanning the walls, murmuring about renovation potential and better ocean visibility. Lila nodded eagerly. "We can start planning while Dad's still living here. Still living here. In my house." Before they left, she turned to me and said, "Dad, Nathan and I think it's time we take over the property. You've done your part, but it's time for people who understand real estate to handle it." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her words, people who understand real estate, as if 30 years of my work meant nothing. The next morning, I woke up to a message that turned irritation into something sharper. Betrayal. "Dad, Nathan and I need you to move out by next Friday. We're changing the locks. I've already called a realtor friend to help you find something more affordable." Affordable. She actually used that word. When I called her, she sounded annoyed that I hadn't just accepted it. "Dad, I'm getting married," she said. "You can't expect me to wait forever to start my life. The house is family property. Nathan's parents even offered to cover your moving expenses." Her tone was final, her confidence unshakable. Until I asked one question. "Lila, do you even know how I could afford this house?" She sighed. "You inherited it, right? Grandpa left it to you." That's when I realized the truth. My daughter didn't just forget what I taught her. She'd rewritten our entire story in her head. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't try to make her understand. I simply made 3 calls. And by the next sunrise, her entire version of reality was going to crumble, live, in front of everyone who ever doubted me. But before that happened, I needed to make sure every piece was in place, because the lesson I was about to teach her would be impossible to forget. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the ocean was louder than usual. Waves crashing like they were mocking me for raising a child who couldn't tell the difference between love and entitlement. At 6 a.m., I brewed coffee, stared out the window of the house I'd built with my own hands, and opened the drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside were documents, ownership deeds, tax records, company papers, all proof that this family property was mine and mine alone. I took a deep breath, dialed the first number. First call, Margaret Lewis, my attorney for over 2 decades. She answered immediately. Daniel, this early? That's not like you. I need papers drawn up, I said. Ironclad. Fast. What kind of papers? The kind that'll remind my daughter that an inheritance isn't a birthright. There was silence on the line. Then she said softly, How fast? 24 hours. And, Daniel? She hesitated. Is this going public? Oh, it'll be public. Very public. Second call. David Tran, operations head at my private real estate company. Blue Wave Properties, the business nobody, not even Lila, knew existed. He sounded confused when he picked up. Sir, you weren't supposed to call until next quarter's board review. Plans have changed, I said. I want the Pacific Crest and Coral Point listings sold immediately. Full asking price, cash buyers only. Close before midnight. Both properties? That's a combined $9 million in value. I know exactly what it is, I said. Just make sure the buyers can close fast. Understood, sir. Any reason for the rush? Family lesson. Third call. Dr. Hannah Brooks, the therapist Lila and I saw for 3 sessions before she decided therapy was too emotional. Dr. Brooks, I said, I need to book a meeting for tomorrow morning, and I'll need you to record it for documentation. Daniel, what's going on? Let's just say a truth needs to be put on record. By sunset, every piece was in motion. That night, Lila called. I almost didn't answer. When I finally did, she said, Dad, you're not really going to make this hard, are you? Nathan's parents already contacted their lawyer. I read their letter, I said evenly. It was entertaining. You mean official? No, I said. Entertaining. The document had arrived that afternoon. Polished letterhead from Hayes and Brooks Real Estate Counsel. The language was so polite it was almost insulting. It gave me 30 days to hand over ownership of my home or face formal legal proceedings regarding inheritance disputes and succession rights. Inheritance dispute for something I'd purchased with my own money. They even included a transition plan. Week 1, pack personal belongings. Week 2, coordinate with Lila's realtor. Week 3, finalize property transfer. Week 4, complete move out. They'd even gone so far as to estimate living expenses suitable for your retirement bracket. Retirement bracket, as if I were some fragile old man they were doing a favor by evicting. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I placed the letter neatly in a folder labeled Proof of Ignorance. Then I opened my laptop and scrolled through a folder few people had ever seen. Blue Wave Holdings. Confidential portfolio. Rows of addresses. Numbers. Documents. Over 200 properties across 12 states. All mine. Rental income streams. Corporate filings. Even the Forbes article they'd published 2 years ago. The Quiet Titans of Coastal Real Estate. My name wasn't in the headline, but anyone who knew the industry recognized it. To the public, I was just Daniel Cole, the man with the old truck. Behind the scenes, I was the founder and CEO of a company worth over $80 million. And my daughter, my only child, had just tried to take from me the one thing I gave her to make her feel safe. The next evening, Lila called again. We're having an engagement dinner tomorrow, she said. Nathan's parents want you there. Let's try to be civil. Of course, I said. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I hung up and stared out at the fading light over the water. She thought I'd come to smile politely and hand her my keys. But she was about to learn that sometimes, silence is just the sound of a storm gathering strength. The next night, 23 people would sit in my living room drinking $1,000 wine. And before the last glass was poured, my daughter would realize everything she believed about her father was a lie. The next evening, I arrived exactly on time. Lila's small engagement dinner turned out to be a full-scale production. Valet parking, waitstaff in black vests, chandeliers strung across the living room ceiling. There were 23 guests, all smiling, all pretending not to notice the old man walking in with a bottle of $18 wine. "Dad!" Lila rushed over, her diamond ring flashing under the lights. "You made it. Wouldn't miss it," I said, handing her the bottle. She smiled, the kind of smile people use when they're embarrassed by someone they love. "Oh, how thoughtful." Her fiancé Nathan appeared behind her, every bit the poster child of wealth. Slick hair, tailored suit, gold cufflinks that could pay someone's rent for a year. "Mr. Cole," he said, shaking my hand like he was closing a deal. "Glad you could come. Lila's been telling everyone about the property transition. It's a great move." "Property transition?" I repeated. "Interesting phrase." He laughed. "It's just paperwork. A formality. I'm sure you understand." I smiled politely. "Oh, I do. Probably better than you think." The room buzzed with quiet conversations. Real estate, art auctions, and expensive vacation homes. Lila floated around like she belonged there, introducing me as my dad, Daniel. He's kind of semi-retired now. Retired. That was new. At one point, Nathan's mother, Vivian Brooks, approached me. Elegant woman, sharp smile. "Mr. Cole, you have a beautiful home. Lila tells us it's been in the family for years." "Not quite," I said. "I bought it myself." "How wonderful," she replied, as if I'd said something adorable but incorrect. "It must be nice passing down such a legacy." I set down my glass. "That depends on whether the next generation knows what a legacy costs." Vivian blinked. "I beg your pardon?" Before I could answer, Lila appeared between us, panic flickering in her eyes. "Dad, can we not make tonight uncomfortable?" "Of course," I said calmly. "I'll stay quiet. For now." Dinner began. Between bites of seared salmon and truffle risotto, I listened to Nathan's father boast about market shifts, property values, and the inevitable decline of old ownership. His tone carried the confidence of a man who assumed the world was already his. Halfway through dessert, Lila stood up and clinked her glass. "Everyone, I just want to say how grateful we are to have family gathered here. This house means a lot to me. It's where I grew up. Soon, it'll be part of our next chapter." The applause that followed felt like a knife turning slowly in my chest. I placed my napkin beside my plate. "Before we toast to that," I said evenly, "I think there's something everyone here deserves to understand." The room quieted. Lila's smile faltered. "Dad, please. I've been hearing a lot about inheritance," I continued. "About transitions. About family property. But there's a small legal problem with that." Nathan frowned. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that happens when someone tries to take ownership of something that doesn't belong to them." Vivian gave a tight laugh. "Mr. Cole, no one's taking anything. You're simply relocating." I finished for her. "Like an old tenant being moved out for renovations?" The air in the room turned heavy. Lila's cheeks went pale. "Dad, please don't do this." I took out my phone. "I have a question for my lawyer. She's on speed dial." I tapped the screen. "Margaret, can you hear me?" Her voice came through clearly on speaker. "Yes, Daniel. Go ahead." "If someone bought a property outright 15 years ago," I said, "and their adult child tried to claim inheritance rights while the owner was still alive, what would that be called?" Margaret's voice echoed through the room. "Potential fraud, depending on intent." Gasped. A wine glass clinked. Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "Fraud," he said. "That's ridiculous." And what if, I continued, that same child's fiancé's father drafted legal papers threatening the owner with court action if he didn't surrender the property? That, Margaret said, could constitute attempted extortion. Vivian's face drained of color. Lila's hand trembled. Dad, please stop. I'm not finished, I said, pulling a folder from my jacket. Inside were documents, ownership deeds, incorporation papers, financial statements. Margaret, I said, can you remind me what Blue Wave Holdings is? Her tone turned formal. Blue Wave Holdings is a coastal real estate firm founded by Daniel Cole in 1995. The company currently owns and manages over 200 residential and commercial properties across 13 states. Estimated value, approximately $82 million. Dead silence. Nathan's jaw dropped. That's impossible. I smiled faintly. You're right, Nathan. It was impossible, until I made it happen. I glanced at my daughter. Her eyes were wide, glistening. Dad, you never said. You never asked, I said quietly. You just assumed. The room was still as glass. Even the waves outside sounded like they were holding their breath. In that silence, every assumption, every lie my daughter had built her world on cracked. But what none of them knew, not Lila, not Nathan, not even my lawyer, was that I'd already made one final move before walking into that dinner. And by sunrise, everything they thought was safe would be gone. For a long moment, no one said a word. You could have heard the ocean breathing through the glass doors. Lila's hand trembled on her wine glass. Nathan looked like someone had punched the air out of him. His father's mouth opened, then closed again, like he couldn't decide whether to apologize or call security. Finally, Lila whispered, Dad, you own Blue Wave Holdings? I nodded. Since the day you were born. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. You said you were retired, she murmured. I said I was tired, I corrected. There's a difference. A few guests tried to stand, realizing they'd wandered into a family disaster. Others pretended to scroll on their phones while secretly recording everything. Vivian Brooks stepped forward, her voice brittle and polite. Mr. Cole, I'm sure this is some kind of misunderstanding. Perhaps we could. There's no misunderstanding, I said. Your son and my daughter tried to pressure me into surrendering a property I built. You sent me legal papers to threaten me out of my own home. And now you're learning who exactly you were threatening. She froze. You're exaggerating. Am I? I pulled a letter from my jacket, the same one they'd couriered earlier that week. Your firm's letterhead, your timeline, your proposed transition. I'm sure the Bar Association would find this very educational. Vivian went pale. Nathan reached for Lila's hand, but she jerked away. Her face was white as bone. Dad, why didn't you tell me? She whispered. You let me humiliate you. You let me talk to you like I was beneath you, I said. Because that's how you saw me. I didn't hide the truth, Lila. You just never cared to ask it. Someone in the corner coughed. Someone else whispered, Is he serious? Then Nathan, voice cracking slightly, said, If you're really this wealthy, why live like this? Why the old truck, the cheap clothes? Because I don't measure my worth by how loud it screams, I said. And maybe if your family understood that, you wouldn't be so quick to judge people who don't wear their money like a costume. I could see in his face that every word hit harder than a punch. Lila's voice cracked. You could have told me, Dad. And would it have changed anything? I asked. Would you have loved me more? Or just bragged louder? She didn't answer. I took a breath, then glanced at the guests. All 23 of them, standing there in dead silence, pretending they weren't staring. Everyone here knows what my daughter's been telling people, I said. That I'm broke, that I'm holding her back, that she deserves my home because she's earned her place in a world I paid for. Lila's lip quivered. Dad, stop. But I didn't stop, because this was the moment she'd built her empire of illusions around, and it was collapsing. I held up my phone, showing her a screenshot from that morning. Her Instagram story. Moving forward with family property decisions. Some people need to learn when to step aside. The caption was still visible. So were the 4,000 comments cheering her on. You posted this from my kitchen, I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. I was just excited about our future. Our future, I repeated. You mean your future? The one you planned with my house, my money, and someone else's arrogance. Nathan shifted uneasily. Maybe we should talk about this privately. No, I said, turning toward him. You wanted to make this public when you tried to evict me. You wanted to make it legal. So let's finish it publicly too. I looked directly at him. Do you know what Blue Wave Holdings owns, Nathan? The office building where your father's firm is headquartered. The shopping complex your mother's boutique leases. And the hotel where you proposed to my daughter. The room gasped. Vivian staggered back like I'd slapped her. You're bluffing, Nathan said weakly. I pulled out a glossy magazine from my folder and tossed it onto the table. The cover read, Forbes, The Quiet Titans of Real Estate. Page 63. A photo of me, grainy but unmistakable. Nathan stared at it like it was a ghost. Still think I don't understand real estate? I asked. By the time I walked out of that room, no one said a word. Lila sat frozen on the couch, tears streaming silently down her face. Nathan looked like a man watching his world collapse in slow motion. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at my daughter one last time and said, You wanted to see how real wealth works, Lila? Well, here it is. Quiet, controlled, and entirely out of your reach. Then I left. That night, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Texts, missed calls, even reporters sniffing around, trying to confirm the story. But the one notification that made me pause was from Instagram. Lila had just gone live. Tens of thousands were watching, and as I tapped the screen to open her stream, I realized she was about to destroy the one thing even money couldn't buy back, her own name. When I opened her live stream, more than 40,000 people were already watching. Lila was sitting in her car, makeup smeared, eyes red from crying, her diamond ring glinting under the streetlight. The comment section was exploding, half pity, half outrage. Guys, she said, her voice cracking, I don't even know how to start this. My whole life has been a lie. She sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. My dad pretended to be poor. All these years. He owns like some $80 million real estate company. 80 million. And he let me think he was struggling, that he couldn't afford anything. The chat went wild. What? Girl, are you serious? Why would he do that? He let me humiliate him, she continued, her voice trembling. He let me call him lazy, cheap, even worthless, and he didn't say a word. He just sat there. And tonight, he embarrassed me in front of everyone. I sat in my office watching in silence. Every lie she'd told about me was unraveling on camera, and every truth she'd ignored was coming to light. Lila's followers filled the comments with their own judgments. Your dad sounds like a legend. You tried to steal his house? Parents shouldn't have to prove their worth. Girl, delete this live before you ruin your career. But she didn't stop. She was spiraling, too deep to realize what she was doing. He's been charging rent, she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. Like actual rent from people staying in our house. My friend Jenna's been paying him $4,000 a month for the guest cottage. I didn't even know. The audience reacted instantly. You mean the guest house you filmed your reels in? Wait, your friend was renting from your dad and you didn't know? Lila covered her face. You guys don't understand. I thought it was my house. I told everyone it was. I planned renovations. I was going to move in with Nathan after the wedding. Her voice cracked. And my dad just stood there, watching me plan a future that didn't belong to me. She looked straight into the camera. He was testing me. That's what this was. He was waiting for me to expose what kind of person I really am. Her lip trembled. And I failed. The viewer count jumped to 52,000. Comments flooded in faster than she could read. Some defended her, calling her father cruel. Others didn't hold back. You tried to evict your own dad. Entitlement caught in 4K. Your dad's my hero. Nathan appeared in the frame, looking panicked. Lila, baby, end this. Please. Just stop talking. No, Nathan. I won't stop. People need to hear it. Not like this, he said, voice shaking. You're destroying yourself. She turned on him. I already did that when I tried to steal my dad's house. The live chat exploded. She admitted it. This is insane. Girl. Stop before your sponsors see this. But it was already too late. Her phone vibrated again and again, calls, emails, brand alerts. She read one aloud through hiccuped sobs. Revolve just suspended my contract. They said I'm not aligned with their values anymore. Nathan closed his eyes, muttering a curse under his breath. Lila laughed bitterly. My values. You know what my values were? Expensive clothes, likes, views, pretending I earned a life my father built. And when I thought he was too poor to stop me, I tried to take the one thing he actually cared about. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And he let me. The viewer count crossed 60,000. By then, news blogs were clipping the stream, journalists were tweeting about it, and reaction channels were already downloading her meltdown in real time. She had become content. Lila looked at the camera one last time. Dad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I said things no daughter should ever say. And I understand if you never forgive me. Then she ended the stream. The screen went black. I sat there staring at my phone, unable to move. Part of me wanted to call her, to tell her to stop before it got worse. But another part of me knew this was the only way she'd ever understand. That night, her name trended across every platform. Hashtag the entitled daughter, hashtag inheritance gone wrong, hashtag the millionaire dad. Clips from her live flooded YouTube and TikTok. Her sobbing face, her confessions, her mistakes. The world had turned her life into a cautionary tale. And by sunrise, every sponsorship, every follower, every illusion she'd built had started slipping through her fingers. But what she didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning. Because when she showed up at my door the next morning, the world had already seen her fall. And I was about to show her what real consequences looked like. The next morning, I was sitting on the deck with a mug of black coffee, watching the first line of sunlight break over the water. It was the same view I'd watched for 15 years. Peaceful, constant, quiet. At 6:15, I heard the sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway. A white Range Rover rolled to a stop. Lila stepped out. No makeup, hair tied back, still wearing last night's clothes. Her phone hung from her hand like it weighed 50 pounds. Dad, she said softly. I nodded toward the empty chair beside me. You're early. She sat down, folding her arms over herself. For a long while, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, You saw the live stream. I did. I ruined everything. I took a slow sip of coffee. No, Lila. You revealed everything. She turned her face away. The internet hates me. Every video, every post, it's everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, even news channels. They call me the entitled daughter. Maybe that title was earned, I said. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't cry this time. I don't understand. You planned that dinner, didn't you? You knew what was going to happen. I knew what you were going to do, I said quietly. And I gave you the chance to prove me wrong. Lila stared at the ocean. You humiliated me. No, I said. You humiliated yourself. I just gave the truth a microphone. She clenched her hands. Was any of it even real? Did you actually sell the house? I stood and walked back into the house, returning with a folder. Inside were documents stamped and signed. 2 sales finalized, I said. The beach villa and your apartment building. Both transferred to Harrison Development Group. Full cash deal. Her face drained of color. You sold them? Both. 6.4 million total, I said. Closed before sunrise. She shook her head in disbelief. But where am I supposed to live? That's a good question, I said. Where do you plan to live? I don't have money, she said, voice breaking. You've always taken care of everything. Exactly, I said. And that's why you don't know how to stand on your own feet. Right then, her phone buzzed again. The screen flashed with Nathan's name. She hesitated, then answered on speaker. Lila, what the hell did your father do? Nathan's voice was sharp, panicked. My dad just found out Harrison Group bought all your properties. Do you have any idea what that means for our family? I leaned back in my chair. Good morning, Nathan. A pause. Mr. Cole, you sold to Harrison? They're our biggest rivals. They offered full asking price in cash, I said. I accepted. Simple business. Nathan swore under his breath. You've made powerful enemies. I've made honest deals, I replied. He turned his anger on Lila. Do you even understand what he's done? My family was negotiating those properties for years. He just handed them to our competition. Lila's voice cracked. Nathan, I didn't know. He didn't tell me. Unbelievable, Nathan said coldly. Do you know how bad this looks? Your father just tanked a major opportunity for us. For you, I said sharply. Not for her. You were never building a future with my daughter, Nathan. You were building one through her. Silence. Then Nathan said, You'll regret this, Mr. Cole. I don't regret truth, I said, and hung up. Lila stared at her phone, her hands trembling. He broke up with me. I raised an eyebrow. Did you expect anything else? Her voice was small. Dad, I don't even have $300 in my account. You have 60 days before Harrison's relocation notices take effect, I said. Use that time wisely. 60 days? She repeated. And then what? Then, I said calmly, you find out what life costs when someone else isn't paying for it. By noon, the media had found the house. Cameras parked outside, snapping photos through the gate. News vans, reporters shouting questions. Mr. Cole, is it true you sold your properties to get revenge on your daughter? Lila, how does it feel to lose your inheritance? I closed the curtains and poured another coffee. Outside, Lila's carefully crafted image was collapsing, one headline at a time. Inside, my daughter sat on the couch, staring at the floor. Dad, she said quietly, I don't know how to live without money. Then it's time to learn, I said. Welcome to adulthood. She looked up at me, eyes red but steady. Are you cutting me off completely? Completely, I said. No allowance, no credit cards, no car payments, no safety net. She swallowed hard. So I just start over? I nodded. Exactly. You start over. She thought losing her house was the worst thing that could happen. But she hadn't yet realized losing comfort was only the first lesson. The real one was still waiting, hidden in the life she'd never had to live. By the second day, the photographers were camped across the street. By the third, the tabloids had given her a name, the heiress who lost everything. Every headline twisted the knife deeper. Influencer evicted by her own father. The $3 million beach house scandal. How one viral meltdown ended a career. Lila stopped checking her phone. The first time she did, her follower count had dropped from 500,000 to just over 380,000. By evening, it was 340,000. Dad, she said quietly, scrolling through the comments. They're calling me spoiled, selfish, a thief. I shrugged. If it hurts, maybe there's some truth in it. Her lips trembled. I've worked so hard for my followers. You built your empire on illusions, I said gently. It takes longer to build a foundation than a facade. She didn't respond. Her phone buzzed again, an email notification. She opened it, and I saw her face drain of color. What happened? I asked. It's Revolve, she whispered. They've terminated my contract. Said I no longer align with brand values. She scrolled down. Fashion Nova 2, and Fit Fuel, and Bloom Hair. Another email came through as she watched, partnership suspension notice. Then another collaboration termination. Within an hour, she'd lost every sponsorship she had. Dad, she whispered, they want their clothes back. All of them. How much is that worth? I asked. Maybe $15,000 in total, she said weakly. But I can't afford to ship everything back. I nodded toward the living room. You have 2 hands and plenty of boxes. Figure it out. For the next few hours, she packed rows of designer shoes, handbags, dresses, all tagged with tiny brand labels. Half of them still had the price tags attached. At one point, she sat on the floor surrounded by piles of clothes and whispered, "I don't even know which ones are mine anymore." "What do you mean?" "I mean, everything in here was free, brand deals, PR packages, or things you bought me. I can't find a single thing I actually earned." I pointed to her jeans. "Those?" She looked down. "Target, $39. And the sweater? H&M, 15. So," I said softly, $54 worth of things that actually belong to you." She swallowed hard. "That's all I own." "Then it's a good place to start," I said. Her phone rang again. It was Madison, her closest friend, the one who'd been at every brand party and photo shoot. "Hey, Lila said weakly. "Please tell me you're not calling to unfriend me." Madison hesitated. "Lila, I just saw the news. The video, the property sale, everything. It's everywhere." "I know. People are saying you tried to steal your dad's house." "I did," Lila said quietly. "I just didn't realize it until too late." There was a pause. "Babe, maybe you should disappear for a while," Madison said finally. "Stay low. Let this die down." Lila laughed bitterly. "Disappear where? My dad sold everything. I don't even have an apartment anymore." "You can crash here for a few days if you need to," Madison offered, voice soft. "But, maybe don't post about it." Lila winced. "Don't worry. Nobody wants to see me anymore." By the end of the week, she'd returned every product she'd been sent. The closet that once looked like a boutique now stood nearly empty. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, and 1 pair of sneakers. When she wasn't boxing things up, she was scrolling through news articles about herself. Her story had become a trending topic, reaction videos, podcasts, even a segment on a morning talk show. "Dad," she said one evening, "they're calling me the face of influencer entitlement." I set down my cup of tea. "Maybe that's what you needed. A mirror instead of a camera." She didn't argue. She just whispered, "I don't know who I am without all of it." I looked at her and said, "Then you finally have a chance to find out." That night, I sat alone on the deck again. From inside the house, I could hear the soft sound of packing tape and cardboard flaps. My daughter, the same one who once flaunted handbags worth more than a year's rent, was folding clothes into recycled boxes. It wasn't punishment. It was freedom disguised as loss. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd find her way back. But change doesn't happen in silence. And when she showed up at my door 3 weeks later, wearing a $5 thrift store sweater and something I hadn't seen in years, humility, I realized the lesson had only just begun. 3 weeks later, there was a soft knock at the door. When I opened it, I almost didn't recognize her. Lila stood there in faded jeans, a plain gray sweater, and sneakers that had seen better days. No designer handbag, no glittering jewelry, just her raw, tired, and human. "Hey, Dad," she said quietly. "Morning," I replied. "You look different." "I feel different." I motioned for her to come in. She hesitated at the threshold like she wasn't sure she was still welcome. "You're always welcome," I said. She nodded, stepping inside. The last rays of sunrise spilled across the floor, lighting the same house she once tried to claim as hers. We sat on the deck, the same spot where we'd shared coffee after her livestream breakdown. For a moment, it was silent except for the hum of the ocean. Finally, she spoke. "I got a job." I turned to her. "Really?" She smiled faintly. "At a coffee shop in Santa Monica. Minimum wage, but it's something." I couldn't help but smile. "How'd you find it?" I walked in and asked if they were hiring. "Simple as that?" "Yeah," she said. "Turns out it's not that complicated when you're not too proud to try." There was a flicker of pride in her eyes, something I hadn't seen in years. Not pride from validation, but from effort. She reached into her pocket and unfolded a sheet of paper, creased and handwritten. "I wrote something," she said. "I want to read it to you." I leaned back in my chair. "Go ahead." Her hands trembled slightly as she read aloud. "3 weeks ago, I tried to take something that didn't belong to me, because I thought I deserved it more than you did. I told myself I was helping, that you were holding me back. But the truth is, I was drowning in my own ego." She paused, taking a shaky breath before continuing. "You spent your life giving me everything, and I spent mine assuming it was mine by right. I never asked what it cost you. I never said thank you, because I thought gratitude was something poor people had to show." Her voice broke for a moment. She looked at me, tears in her eyes, then went on. "I've learned more in 3 weeks without money than I did in 10 years with it. I learned that I don't know how to cook because I always ordered in. I don't know how to budget because I never had to. I don't know how to clean because someone else did it for me. But I'm learning now. Slowly. Painfully. But honestly." She folded the paper and placed it on the table between us. "I'm not asking you to forgive me, Dad," she said softly. "I'm asking you to believe that I can be better." The wind rustled across the porch. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. She looked fragile, not because she was weak, but because she was finally real. "Lila," I said gently, "forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn by not repeating what broke the trust." She nodded. "I know. What does being better look like to you?" She thought for a long moment. "It looks like earning my own rent, buying something with money I worked for, saying thank you before I ask for more, and maybe one day being someone you can be proud of." Her voice cracked at that last part, but this time she didn't cry. I smiled, a small, honest smile. "You already started." She blinked. "Really? You showed up. That's more than most people do after losing everything." As she stood to leave, I said, "Dinner next week?" Her eyes lit up. "Really? Sure. But you're paying." She laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in months. "Dad, I make minimum wage now. Then we'll go somewhere that serves minimum wage food." "Deal." At the door, she turned back. "Thank you, Dad, for everything, even the hard parts." "Especially the hard parts," I said. When the door closed behind her, I stood for a long time, listening to the waves outside. For years, I'd measured my success in money, property, numbers, things that could be counted. But that morning, watching my daughter walk away with empty pockets and a full heart, I realized what real success looked like. It wasn't the houses I built or the wealth I hid. It was this, seeing her finally build herself. But before I could close that chapter, there was still one thing left undone. Something that had nothing to do with money, and everything to do with healing what years of silence had broken.